Just a second. Just waiting for it to display the same and then I'll continue. It's not transferring over. There we are. All right, this is what we've got in store for you today. Just a really quick introduction and orientation, particularly if it's your first time doing a webinar or doing a webinar with us, because we may do it differently from others. Throughout the session today, basically we're revisiting points from a workbook. Now, when you registered for the session, you would have got a confirmation email thanking you for registering and then saying, please download this link, this workbook, so that you could work through things. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're a busy business owner like me, you may or may not have time to do that. You may have even received the email and just skipped over it. Now, I want to let you know it's not essential that you have looked at the workbook, but I do really want to encourage you to go back, revisit that email, and I'll give you the link again at the end today, to work through some exercises so that specifically your business is ready. Today I'll speak generally. There'll be some time to ask questions at the end, as you can see there. If you want to get the most out of today's session, please do go back and do some time with that workbook. This next slide is a picture of me. So as I said, my name's Yvette Adams, and I've won quite a few business awards. I've started lots of different businesses. I call myself a serial entrepreneur. I've worked in media, marketing and PR pretty much my whole career, but the businesses I've run, some have been quite small and some have been larger projects. First one was a secondary school sports newspaper when I was just 17 years old, which got bought out after its first issue by an American entrepreneur. Second business was when I was 26. I was basically a global traveller, and I was running this online t-shirt business from around the world, often just from an internet cafe at a random location like Argentina. That later got bought out too. Right now my real focus is the Creative Collective. So as you can see there, I'm the owner director, and we even have a franchise network for this company. And basically we do things that are creatively inclined. We design websites, do graphic design, social media, online, lots of online and digital marketing strategies, and basically helping businesses to succeed online. We do work with startups right through to very large companies, both locally where we are on the Sunshine Coast, but also nationally and internationally. I also like to share a bit of the personal side of me, because I realise that, you know, it's not all about business. I don't know about you, but I've also got a family to manage, and that's probably my hardest job of all. I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old son. He's just turned 8. My 4-year-old will be 5 in January and off to school, which he's very excited about. And I really do love training and assisting others. I love sharing my years in business, my top tips, and hopefully empowering businesses to just go a little bit further, do a little bit better. And once again, it's just such a great initiative that Dee offers these webinars at lunchtime for free, so you can, from the privacy of your own home or workplace, log in and hopefully grab a few quick tips. Now, just before we get into the guts of today, I'd like to make sure that you know how to make the most of this technology we're using. You'll notice that there should be a little red arrow sort of in a menu bar. I'd like you to click on that if you haven't already to expand what you could see. And then it should come up with a list, and you should have a column where you can put your hand up. I'd all like you to test that function by putting your hand up now. Rachel's got hers up, Kim has, Christina has. Everybody put your hands up just so I know you're there, you're listening, and you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't got that functionality down, please keep looking for it while I continue talking, because throughout today's presentation I will be asking you to participate by raising your hand or indicating yes or no. I also want to point out that there's another area, a questions area, where you can drop me a quick line to say, yes, I agree, or that's happened to me, or even to ask me a question, particularly if you don't have a mic. So would you all like to try dropping me a quick line on the question or chat area, just by saying hi or hello or what's happening, whatever you want to say, just so I know you've also worked out that functionality. Now, if you have any technical issues while we play today, I want you to know that I've got Jag Quimby from our office online as well, so please feel free to ask him anything you might be having trouble with as well. Okay, let's get on with it. We are talking about business continuity, and when it comes to business continuity, you've really got to get some planning going down. So when we talk about BCP, or business continuity planning, we have another acronym, and that is PPRR. If you remember nothing else today, perhaps try and remember this. because it will remind you the steps you need to go through to be in a better position when it comes to preparing your business for potential disasters. Now the fact is, people, we live in sunny Queensland, and it's sunny some of the time, but disasters do happen. And a lot of us were reminded that in really recent memory last summer. So I think it's really wonderful you've all decided to get on and learn some more about how you might be able to prevent this, whether those last round of disasters affected you or not. And please just share this knowledge too. So anyway, back to the PPRR. What do they mean? We can see on screen: prevention, preparedness, response and recovery. This is a comprehensive approach to emergency, and it's actually the order you should go about things as well. So right now I'm going to go through and explain each of these in more detail. Okay. So step one is, actually I would like to know before we go on, how many of you have been involved in a disaster? Put your hands up if you have personally been affected by one. And just a tip on the hands thing, if you put them up you need to click it down, otherwise I'll think you do have a question. So after you've put it up and I've finished the question, we'll put it down. So it looks like Roger Green has, and Kim has got her hand up, and Christina has. So great. Not so many of you. Sian has as well. Do you want to text chat me and tell me what sort of disaster that was? Was it a flood, a cyclone, a storm? Tell me a bit about your story, and we might be able to explore those a little bit later. Okay, when it comes to preparing for disasters, the first thing we've got to do is evaluate our risk. Now, this is a good thing to do in business regardless. I'm sorry, but this has just come up. I'm going to kill that. There we go. Okay. First thing we want to do is identify risks that could impact our business. Step two, analyze risks to assess their impacts, evaluate those risks, treat the risks, and develop and review a risk management plan. Now, actually in that workbook I was referring to earlier, there is a risk management plan that you can use to walk around your business, because everyone will be different, and go through these steps, identifying them, analysing them, evaluating them, and so on. Now you need to constantly go through this process. So even if you listen to me today, you go and do it. You don't sit on that and say, I've done that and I never have to do it again, because risk and businesses always change. So you may find over time that new risks are created because maybe you change premises, maybe you get new staff on board, maybe you have new machinery. All of these things present new potential risks. Sometimes existing risks are increased or decreased. Sometimes they no longer exist. Sometimes the priority changes. And sometimes what we thought we would do to prevent or minimise those risks aren't effective anymore. So we need to keep revisiting this. Now, over time this year, I've had the pleasure of having a variety of guests to talk about their experiences with disaster. And a really united front that they presented was that they all wished they had done this before disaster struck, and it actually would have saved them a heap of money as well when it came to liaising with the insurance companies. If you go through this process and then you do have a disaster, you can then present that to the insurance companies and explain to them that I did all I could to minimise my risk, and that will put you in a much better position. So do you think that's worth doing? Hands up if you think even just for that reason this could be a worthwhile exercise. Sure, I'm pretty sure that would be all of us. Okay, so why would you want to go through with all of this? So I've already talked about insurance, but it could reduce the insurance premiums we're paying now. I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of money on insurance every single month. And if I could get those premiums down to spend on other things in business, that would be a good thing. The other reason is it will allow you to continue your business quickly or even instantaneously. You know, a lot of people suffered in the disasters earlier this year, and some of them are only just getting back on their feet, you know, just recently, and that's months and months of ineffective trading. Now, the first thing I thought when I saw the Brisbane floods, for instance, coming up on the screen, and indeed the Queensland floods, first thing I thought was, gee, I hope those people are safe and their property and their families. But my second thought was, I wonder if when they last backed up, I wonder what, you know, risk management, business continuity planning they've already done, because I knew that that would mean they would be able to maybe just go work somewhere else, even interstate or maybe just the next town along. But if they hadn't done that, they might not be able to work for a very long time. The other reason you would want to go through this is it can reduce your chance of being sued. So natural disaster or not, the fact is sometimes things happen in business. If you've already assessed your risks and you've minimised them, it will reduce your risk of someone, pursuing you. We've talked about the time when the business may not be able to operate. It also allows a plan to replace key people. You may be the key person in your business. Hands up if you are that key person. You can't go away. You can't not be there because it will have an impact on your business. Yeah, sure. That's very common, I think 90% of businesses in Australia are small businesses where often the business owner founder is a key personnel. Hands up if you've got a key staff member that if they left or just weren't around or were injured or something, you'd be pretty stuffed as well. Sure, so there's some hands go up as well. So you actually always need to think, no matter how good a relationship you have with that staff member or how well things are going, think ahead, and if they suddenly one day say they are pregnant, they are leaving, something's happened, you have a succession plan in place. I just had a meeting just before actually with a guy from a retail store here locally in Maroochydore, and he has grand plans to grow his business and be the face of his business and do public speaking and media, etc. But right now, I saw within 1 hour of hanging out with him, three different staff members have to come up and ask him a question. So I know that he's not in a position to do that until he has a plan to pass that knowledge on. And we talked about all sorts of things like procedurizing everything in the company and putting it online. He told me he had an operations manual, but it's basically in a folder and it's dating, it's gathering dust on the shelf. And staff at the end of the day are not going to flick through that when they've got a customer standing right in front of them. So I suggested an online system where they can actually search for the information they're looking for, and only if the answer is not there that they then ask him a question. Hands up who's already got a system like that in their offices, procedures, itemised, how to do things in their business. Sonia has, and Talita has, and Nicole has. Well, Genevieve, great. Well, well done, Daniel, because that adds a lot of value to your business. So if you would like to increase the value of your business, I can't emphasize enough how important procedures are. Right now I have a staff member exiting, and I've instructed that person that as they leave, they need to get their job description and write a procedure for each item on that job description. And that's perhaps something you might like to do as well. The other reason is it can reduce the loss or damage to machinery. Now, on one of these sessions earlier this year, we had a guy from a company called Embroid Me in Brisbane and Milton who had really excessive flooding damage. His story, he told us that he found out the floods were coming. He was told by the Bureau of Meteorology, he made the right inquiries, it was due to go up to about 0.8 metres. He doubled that, thinking they might get it wrong and thinking he'd just be on the safe side. So he put his very expensive embroidery machinery up to 1.5 or a bit more metres, and you know what, a 2 metre flood came through and that machinery was ruined. So he could have thought through this perhaps a bit better, but hindsight's a beautiful thing. But overall, you really just want to improve your capacity to stay in business. So how do we do this? Well, there is, like I said, a risk management spreadsheet in your workbooks. This one's a little bit more simplified just for the purposes of a screen. So I might actually unmute one of you now and see if one of you could just help me with one of these lines to assist others to learn about this. So hands up if one of you can think of a risk in your business and you've already thought about, the likelihood of it, the consequence, and what you could do to minimise that risk. Who's maybe done a bit of planning in this area already? If you'd like to raise your hand. Don't be shy. We're all here to learn off one another. Okay, Christina has. Thanks for volunteering. You with me, Christina? Hello, Christina. Hello, Christina. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like sound's coming through at your end. I better mute you again, and look, in the interest of time, we'll make one up. Okay, take the time to identify risks. All right, here's one for me. We rely heavily on computers in my business, and I imagine lots of you do too. So a risk would be if our main centralised hard drive, where we back everything up to, crashed, was flooded, fire, stolen, or whatever. That's a risk to us. So we might say loss of data, description, all data stored on main hard drive. Now the likelihood of that happening, I would put as medium to high. You know, the thing could just die, or it could, any of those other disasters could happen. The consequence would be high. The mitigation, that's how you'll guard against it. That's how you'll fix it. So my mitigation is to not have one copy on a hard drive, but to also have a second copy which is taken off site on a daily basis. And another mitigation strategy we have in place against that risk is to actually back up data online. So I've instructed key staff to scan key documents like insurance papers, like Australian business ABN number, anything you might need in the case of a disaster. Is good to have scanned and on Google Docs or on your company wiki or something like that. And actions needed, perhaps it could be for me to review what is online and to make sure that we do a bit of an audit, maybe discuss at the next team meeting anything else that should be online as we lead towards, say, a holiday break and set a deadline perhaps of before the Christmas break. We'll do that because, hey, who knows if a disaster could rip through here at Christmas. Does that make sense? Hands up if that's seeming like a good idea now and we understand a risk management plan and why we should do one. Great, lots of hands going up, we're getting somewhere. Okay, now we've touched on insurance, but I want to spend some more time here because it really is very important. I want you to all to ask yourselves these questions. What insurances do I have in place? For instance, if you are offering a service, you're providing advice to others, there's a high chance you need professional indemnity insurance. If you are dealing with the public or in public spaces, there's a high chance you need public liability insurance. You may need business insurance, and here's an interesting thing that I've learned along the way. I used to run a home-based business, and I would have thought that my home and contents insurance would cover that. But I was told it would only cover up to about $20,000 worth of equipment, and that anything more than that would be deemed it should be business insurance under a separate category. So that's something for you to look into your current house and contents policy, look if it covers it, do an audit of what you actually have in there, because sometimes when you add up every little fan and power socket and whatever other electrical device you might have, should it be flooded, fired, whatever, it could actually add up to way more than you ever imagined. So that could be an action point to go through and do a bit of a contents audit if you like. On the insurance, when was the last time you updated it? Now, my advice would be to have in your diary a recurring reminder to review your insurance every year. For me, the prompt is when the insurance company gets in touch and says you're due for an annual renewal. I usually do another audit and I look at what has changed since then. However, if you're in a very dynamic business, it's growing fast, it's changing fast, maybe you've got more staff, maybe you've changed premises, maybe you're carrying more stock, that could be a really good reason to actually look at updating it even more regularly. Because I've seen examples, and I don't want this to happen to you people, where people thought they were insured, and because their business has grown and they hadn't communicated that, they actually were underinsured, in which case the insurance sometimes didn't cover them at all, so they're paying these premiums really for nothing. Now, another really important point is that there are people called insurance brokers. So just like mortgage brokers that you can go to and they've got you with their best interest at heart, you can go to an insurance broker. They're not going to charge you anything. You just tell them about your business. You might have to just give up some of your time, and then they will go around and find the best solution for you. I love insurance brokers because then I don't have to go and do all that hard work. They do get a cut from the insurance companies they work with, but you don't need to worry about that stuff. So I seriously would outsource that job. We've talked about circumstances changing. So hands up if you think you probably are due an insurance review. Nobody? Daniel's got his hand up from before. Wow, so we're all on top of insurance. I'm very impressed, people. Roger sent in a question. He said, do you advocate insuring against all risks? Should we consider self-insuring? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, Roger. I might explore that question by unmuting you later. And if it's a specific question like that, I would probably consider asking an insurance broker that question. Another thing to know is there is actually a thing called an insurance ombudsman. I don't know if you've heard of things like telecommunications ombudsman. Basically, they're an overseer of the industry, and they know who's out there, who might be suitable. So for me, my business, I couldn't really work out who might be a good person to work with, because I feel like we're in the IT industry, we're in the creative industry, we're sort of in advertising and marketing as well. So I actually called them up and said which sort of insurance companies or insurance brokers might be able to look after us, given we kind of do a lot of different stuff, and they were really, really helpful. Rachel says she's doing her insurance now. Good on you, Rachel. You know, you've got some time off, maybe, depending on what industry you're in, coming up, people. It's a really good planning phase. If you get this stuff in place, you'll have a much better business year next year, I'm telling you right now. Okay, so it's great to have a plan A in terms of, you know, looking at risks and things, but you also need a plan B, C, and D. What are the sorts of plans that you might look to have? Hopefully I can give you some ideas off this slide. Quality control processes. You know, is there a way of ensuring what you're producing is a good quality? So, for instance, when we create a website, we have a checklist that staff have to go through to make sure every website we put out is a really quality production and nothing key is forgotten about. Because, for instance, let's say the security on an e-commerce website wasn't put on, that could be disastrous. We could be sued over that. We could have insurance issues. What about staff training? You know, you don't want a disaster happening and the staff turning around saying, I wasn't trained, so I didn't know, therefore you as the owner are going to be possibly in the firing line. Workplace health and safety, big area, and when disasters come through, you're responsible for all people on your premises, whether they're staff or visitors or whatever. So you want to make sure that you are up to date with your workplace health and safety. Workplace Health and Safety Queensland are obviously a great organisation who can help you there. There are advisors out in the field who can come and audit your business for free. They're not there to point fingers and dob you in, they're there to help. And they have great kits that you can download from their website as well. We actually did a webinar with them earlier this year, which is recorded and available, so you may even like to find the time to listen to that and grab a few more tips on that area. Maintaining facilities, plant and equipment, you know, if you can ensure they're looked after to a high standard, you've got a regular maintenance plan in place, you may find that it's better to do that than going out and buying new stuff. Appropriate security devices. You know, sometimes when natural disasters or disasters full stop happen, there can be situations like looters and so on. So making sure you've got good security in place is pretty important. Pre-storm and cyclone, you know, we're in the zone now, people. Anywhere in Queensland, we could have a storm or a cyclone. So it's really important that we get ready for that. I've got some more tips on that coming up. Establishing appropriate systems and controls. Here, for example, I've already talked about, you know, possibly having an online system where you have your procedures or operations manual online so that people can access it easily from anywhere. Because given, let's say you had to move out of your Brisbane office, you could have just gone and worked somewhere else with that in hand. Now, similarly, if you have an online account system, an online CRM like a client relationship management system, and other online systems, you can work from anywhere with the internet. You're not reliant on a certain computer in a certain location. I don't know about you, but for me, I like to have a balanced lifestyle, and that's how I find I achieve it. The backup side of things, very, very important. I talked about in a recent webinar where we covered off cloud computing in more detail, you know, the importance of getting that data off-site. Because unfortunately, for instance, in those recent Queensland floods, some companies had their backups or their servers in the car park, and the car park or the basement got flooded, so that was no good to them at all. Again, I'm a real big fan of backing up in the cloud. You can actually get online solutions that will automatically back up on a systematic basis, whether that's daily at 6 o'clock or weekly if weekly is all right for you, so you don't even have to think about it. So I encourage you to look into those solutions. You really want to have careful selection of staff and monitoring devices too. Talked about cloud computing. We need emergency procedures and kits. I'll give you some ideas on that. Evacuation plans. Remember, you're responsible. And regular drills and tests. Just because you've done a drill or a test at some point in time, you know, time flies by in business. And maybe a new staff member, someone really crucial, doesn't know what they're supposed to do in these situations. If you've got any more suggestions of plan B, C and D, ways you can protect your business and minimise risk, Feel free to text them in now and I'll share them with the others. Okay, let's look at preparedness, and I thought the old Boy Scout "We're Prepared" motto might be a good one for this slide. On that next P, P-R-R, the next P is preparedness. We want to look at what we can do to prepare. So it's really about being proactive, as you can see there, and really not thinking that it won't happen to me. I mean, I think a lot of people used to have that mentality, but now that we've had those recent disasters, I think people are a lot more likely to understand it could happen to anyone, anytime, so get organised now. This is something you can do to prepare that you may or may not have thought of. If you've got a shop front, considering your window strength. We actually discovered in the course of our research that there's an organisation called the Window Film Association of Australia and New Zealand. That's their website there. And they can actually recommend solutions on how you can protect windows and things, because you wouldn't want one to blow out and hurt someone in a cyclone or a storm. It will also ensure the safety of your staff, and it's just a good idea to do with skylights, glass doors, maybe even at home. And of course, you want to remember to stay away from windows. It might sound, so basic, but if you can hear from my accent, I'm actually from New Zealand and I've never experienced a cyclone or anything like that. So simple advice like that a person may need. I mean, maybe you've got a staff member who's come from down south and isn't used to cyclones, or from another country. So don't always take for granted your knowledge. Make sure you do take people through the basics. I mean, someone even said to me, in the case of a cyclone, put your rubber thongs on so that you're earth to the ground. And I thought, what a great tip. I would never have known that. Now, a few of you are sending in questions and comments, so thank you so much. I will go through those at the end in the interest of time, if you don't mind, so just know that I'm not ignoring you. Okay, now I want to talk to you about a BIA. So this is a business impact analysis, and it's different to your risk management strategy. So a business impact analysis, where it's different, is it's looking at critical business activities and what the impact of that loss could be and how long it might take to get it up and running again. So if you can go through this as well, there's also a template in your workbook for this. So here's an example. A critical business activity for a sample business is production services. The description is that they make customized widgets for individual customer orders. It's a high priority. Now, if they were to lose the ability to produce those products, that could be 7,500 revenue they were down each week. They would end up building up stock and inventory. Customers could source alternate suppliers. They'd be unable to meet business overheads, and they would have to, after a couple of weeks, probably lay people off, which would not be good for anyone. So basically, their RTO is the critical period before business losses occur is 2 weeks for that particular one. So you really need to go through and identify a bunch of those so that you know what impact these things would have. Now, this sort of stuff, again, when a disaster strikes, you might lose your head. So if you can pick up a piece of paper that you've, written when you've had time and clear thought and not all that emotion, could be a real saving grace for you. Hands up who thinks they might go and look at that page on the workbook. Good one. I really recommend that you do. Okay, looking at response now. This is the first R in the acronym from the start, PPRR. First R is response. So how will you or your team respond? So it's a really good idea, even if you're just a small team, to put together an incident response team to make sure that you've got people with different areas of expertise who can understand and evaluate the situation and then come up with solutions. So same thing again. Sometimes when disasters strike, people aren't thinking clearly and they've got to think very quickly. So if you can go through these scenarios beforehand, you'll be in a much better position. Now, an incident response team should include a team leader. Now, as the owner of your business, that may be you, but you know what? If you think there's going to be other things to address that perhaps only you can do, perhaps, for instance, you're an engineer and you know you're going to have to be off dealing with that, you may need to nominate someone else. Similarly, if you know you're the type of person who's highly strung and will lose their cool and freak out, perhaps pick someone on your staff who you think is going to, be solid throughout a period like that. So really know yourself. Think of assessors. Do you have an insurance company you could call if I was to say, something's happened to your business, get an assessor in? Would you know a number and a person? If not, I suggest you go ahead and find one. What about a spokesperson? Throughout the disasters, media all over wanted to know what's happening. For instance, I know the McDonald's factory in Brisbane got, ruined. So people wanted to know when they'd be able to get their next Big Mac. So I doubt very much it was the business owner dealing with that. They would have had a spokesperson. Now I realise it might be you doing all of these things, but you may have a friend who does PR, who's very well spoken, or a business coach who understands your business, a manager. That might be the spokesperson. It may not be you, because again, if you've lost a lot of stock or property damage, etc., you might be too upset. You might not be the right person. So have a really good hard think about that, and make sure that you get their commitment that should an incident happen, the crisis will be their top and only priority. They will jump to, and they'll be right there behind you. Now, something else you need to get ready in terms of a response is what we call a grab bag. So you can get a bag together, and a lot of that might look like, I guess, emergency stuff. And that would include critical documents. So if you haven't got them online, make sure they're in a copy in a bag somewhere as well, so that if you have to leave quick, they say, there's an inland tsunami coming through, and, in a matter of minutes, you just grab this bag and you go. It should have a list of the response team members we've just spoken about, and a detailed explanation of their roles and functions. It should have clear instructions for the first half hour, like, should it be this kind of disaster, get up the hill, get off site, drive to, meeting point, whatever it may be. Checklists that people can follow. You can't expect that they will just have common sense. So give them a checklist. So it is contact the insurance company, make sure the security is put on, whatever the case may be. A list of the personnel who have the authority to roll out the plan, and under what circumstances this should occur. In the case of fire, theft, whatever, they can roll that out. An event log to record information. Now, this is one that a lot of people don't think of, but it can really help you. When an insurance company may come in to assess you after a disaster, if you have an event log to say, look, at 9 a.m. we did this, at 9:15 we did that, and basically it proves that you did everything in your power to minimise risk, to save stock, etc., etc., they may then be able to put your insurance through quicker, or put it through full stop without that documentation. Because you know what they're like. They make you jump hoops. They don't make it easy for you. So if you're organised and you can throw the stuff at them, you should have a much easier time of it. An evacuation plan, like I was talking about, is key. Is there a certain meeting point? Is there a plan B and C, like those contingencies we're talking about, if those points aren't available, because maybe in the case of flood, they're all washed out. What about Google Docs? We've talked about that, backing up stuff. This is an important one too, contact lists. What say your phones are out? What say your computers are down? Have you got a contact list of people? It might be your key contacts, your key suppliers, your lawyer, your insurance person. Who would it be that you would need to contact? Maybe if your phone gets lost or flooded or stolen, have you got a backup of those contacts? Really important stuff. Now, what I think was really interesting through all these recent disasters that not only Queensland but indeed the world has experienced in the last 12 months, and I've just got a feeling there's going to be some more next year too. I'm not a negative person, but I don't know, I just have a feeling there will be. I really feel like social media came into its own. Now you can see here, this is Twitter, and it actually dates back to 2007. And one of the first disasters that Twitter was really used for was the San Diego fires. So you can see here different types of people communicating using it. And you can see they use the hashtag, which is a way of just grouping up all the information, hashtag San Diego fire, to let people know what was going on. The same thing happened in the floods, if you didn't already know that. There was a hashtag QLD floods, and that meant that media, anyone affected, directly or indirectly, could search on things like Twitter, hashtag QLD floods, and bring up all the latest information. Now, I don't know about you, but I find Twitter a great source of news. If you want up to the minute from people on the ground, Twitter is great. So sure, you can turn on the TV and monitor the radio. That's your natural thing because those mediums have been around forever. not forever, but a really long time, and most people are used to them, I would suggest perhaps looking at Twitter for updates as well. I mean, for instance, when the earthquake hit Japan, I was on Twitter and I said to my dad, gosh, there's been a really big earthquake in Japan. And he said, when? And I said, 5 minutes ago. He said, gosh, we'll put the TV on. Well, it wasn't for another half an hour that they said and confirmed, yes, there was an earthquake. And the information wasn't nearly as specific. Now, whilst that had happened, I said, now there's a tsunami on the way. And again, it was a lot longer that we actually got that tsunami information on the television. So what I'm suggesting through all of this is that perhaps you look at social networks as a way to respond in a case of a disaster. We saw incidences in the last round where you had big companies who only had one Twitter account or one Facebook account, and maybe it was a national company and it was their offices in Sydney. Well, I really think that people need social networks at a local level, so they can say, for instance, our Ingham store is closed due to Cyclone Yasi, and then people know specifically what's going on in their local area. It's a really quick and easy way to update people. You can do it from your phone. So look, with all of it, define the real problem, determine your strategy, and make sure you do respond quickly and effectively. The first hour is vital. Manage information effectively, so consider looking at Twitter to work out what's going on and what you should do about it. Assume the worst case and that the situation could get worse, and do call on subject matter experts like PR people, legal people, management personnel, security. Just out of interest, who does already have a social network that they would consider using for a disaster? Hands up. Christina does. Some of you have got hands up for a while. Maybe Daniel does, and Sean and Kim as well. Someone else just put their hand up. That might have been Rachel. Good one. Okay, so the final R is recovery. So we've responded, and now we've got to deal with what's left over, which is the recovery. So this is a picture of course, Cyclone Yasi coming in. Wasn't that a crazy time? Recovering, as you can see, can broadly be divided into resumption or continuity of business and restoration or recovery of resources. Now, I was actually in Townsville on Monday, and I made the comment, gosh, you'd never know that Yasi came through. The feedback I had from people there was it was a little bit more south, but they have had a long, hard road to recovery. So what do you do if you're in that person trying to recover? Well, you need to assess the extent of the damage. So number one priority should actually be looking at the injury to any people, whether that's staff, clients, or other members of the public, because you don't want them going, I got injured and my boss didn't even care. Also, damage to your reputation. There were instances of, there's some dirty tactics can go down where competitors may say, they're closed, they're ruined, don't worry about them anymore, they've had that disaster go through. Now that could be damaging for your reputation. You kind of want to know what's happening and you may want to respond. You've also got to think about what impacts the damage has had on your business functions, like your business equipment, the vehicles, the stock. But there's a really important human aspect to disaster management too, and that is staff reactions. To me, you've got to make sure, actually, number one, that they're okay, because you are going to need their help. You need to accept their opinions and feelings. Everyone reacts differently under the case of emotional pressure. Be there to offer support, whether it's through a smile, some kind words, or even a friendly hug, and that can go a really long way. And on these sessions, I have talked to people who have lost a lot, and they've said, just their mates coming and giving them a hug or having a beer with them, even though they were sitting in a huge big mess and didn't know where to start. That's what, kept them their head above water, and they then could start working through the issues. I even had one guy say that he walked into his first staff meeting after the Queensland floods, and he said, I don't know how we're going to get through this, but I know we will. So, and that's basically, together they worked it out. He didn't try and put on the brave face and say it's going to be fine and I know what to do. He was just really, really honest with them, and they responded well to that. Okay, recovery after the crisis. These are some of the things you need to be thinking about. Continuing to communicate with all key stakeholders. Now, every business has different stakeholders, but yours may be the people you supply products to. It may be the people that you source products from. it may be board of advisors, it may be accountants, lawyers. Accountants can maybe communicate with the ATO that there's issues going on. Banks, there can be hardship grants. You could be communicating with government departments. I know a lot of them have offered a lot of support in the form of hardship grants and training and contacts and all that sort of stuff. So do reach out. Make sure you understand, your staff understand what's happening, so make sure that they're not left in the dark. You must keep that communication going and let them know specifically what it is you want them to do, because perhaps their old role used to be X and now you need them to focus on Y, and that's just what you do to get through the period. You may need to identify alternate suppliers, facilities or processes. Someone I've interviewed on one of these sessions gave a great example of how they went to a direct competitor and said, I have orders to fill, I'm not in a position to fill them, could you please fill them on the proviso that they remain my clients, and when I am back up and running, I get them back. And that's what they did, and it's worked out really, really good. So what a great thing that is. Make sure you've got adequate insurance coverage, and look at the impacts on your business functions. We've already talked about the human aspect. It's bolded because it is so very, very important. So we've reached the end of the formal stuff, and here's our summary. This could be maybe some of the action points you look at today. One is to have a go bag or a grab bag, so you can literally grab it and know that you've got the main stuff in there you need. If you've already got one of these, you may like to make sure it's updated. You may have got some tips on things to include from that slide. Go through and identify your risks. Do that exercise, that risk management plan, using the workbook, please. Have a business continuity plan. I'm going to give you a great link to a great template you may like to download in just a moment. This should actually say a business impact analysis, so that is also in the workbook. And do consider cloud computing. I really feel like it's come into its own. It's good to have a backup in the cloud off-site. However, I would like to make a comment. I've had a bit of feedback on here from someone saying, our issue is when a cyclone comes through, we always lose power, sometimes for up to 3 days. We have to issue press releases and stay in touch with the world to inform them of what is going on here to minimise the impact of media sensationalising the event. That's from Christina. Really good comment. So you're really taking, that point I made about making sure that people don't sensationalise. You quote, you speak up, you tell them how it is, you state the facts, and you do monitor what is being said. And Christina has also said we have several staff with home internet access or wireless to be able to communicate with the world even when we have no power. That is a good thing, and she said smartphones are great for this. I couldn't agree more, Christina, because, with Twitter, you can be putting out an effective press release or a tweet with perhaps a link to more information, which you have put up on your smartphone. So they really are wonderful things like that. You're absolutely right. So I said I would give you a link to this business continuity plan. This is a step-by-step tool developed by DD, available on their website on this link here. Write it down while I'm talking. That will help you identify risks associated with disasters, assess the impact on your business, and develop an action plan. I mean, sure, there are consultants out there that pay a lot of money to do the stuff for you, but if you want to, and I do think it's kind of important that the business owner is quite close to this, it's too important for you not to be involved. They've created this great tool for you to go through and do it. Now, I've mentioned the workbook, and I just want to make sure you have got the link. It's smallbusinesswebinars.com.au. If you want to get a recording of today's session, it'll be available in about 2 weeks. Right now, there's already recordings of past weeks on there, and there's lots of other topics, not just on this one. Everything from social media to cloud computing I've touched on, strengthening your business, starting a new business. If you were to work your way through there, I'm pretty sure you'd find a few good tips. So go to the very topic, scroll down, find the workbook and download it. It's really very easy. I want to let you know that we've got just one more webinar for this year, and that is on 6th of December, so in about a week's time at 12:30, and it's on the topic of local search marketing. Now this is really, really applicable if you have a business that you want people to know where you are and you want them to come and visit you. So really ideal for a tourist attraction, a hairdresser, a restaurant, a shop front. I'm going to share with you some really cool, innovative tools that can really get people talking and coming in. So don't miss that. It's free, and you can register business.qld.com.au. didi.gov.au. I'm also going to share these great links. So Didi has a wonderful website, business.qld.gov.au. It is extensive. So apart from business continuity planning, if you're looking for a template for a business plan, a checklist, funding opportunities, information on a certain industry, there is all sorts of information on this website. Go and use the search bar would be my recommendation, typing in a very specific thing you're looking for, or just have a browse and you should find what you're looking for. If you can't find what you're looking for, we'd just like to talk to someone and talk things through. They also have a business hotline. That number is 132523. They're also now on Facebook and Twitter. They would love you to go on there and follow them and like them and start interacting with them as well. Here we go. All right, people, we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm very happy to take questions. I can see some of you have been sending me stuff throughout the presentation, so thanks for that. And there's also some comments I will share. We've already had Christina's one. So Roger Green, I did touch on that. Do you advocate insuring against all risks, or should we consider self-insuring? I think, Roger, my answer to that, just to reiterate, will be to talk to an insurance broker who's a specialist in that. Ask them specifically about self-insuring. I'm pretty sure they will be, or what my understanding is of what you're talking about, encouraging you to insure through a company. Brokers want to sell insurance. They're unlikely to discuss your appetite for risk. Okay, yeah, sure. I understand. Look, I think maybe you could talk to Didi about that then. Maybe someone impartial, or maybe an accountant or a lawyer might be another option. I wonder, but I wouldn't want to comment on that myself. I think it would be dangerous ground. Okay, Rachel McDowell has made the comment, working on stock levels so they are a little higher to ensure that we can supply hoses during the floods when our suppliers can't deliver due to roads flooded, etc. This is hard to manage or coordinate. Got any tips? I think what you're saying, Rachel, is that you want to have high stock levels, but that's in the case of a disaster. Look, that's a little bit of dangerous ground, because you don't want to have all your cash flow tied up in stock either, so that if you don't have a disaster, you know, it's not a great position to be in. I think you'd really want to sit down and work through with an accountant perhaps what is the optimal amount of stock to carry, and perhaps to even carry it at higher risk months when floods perhaps are more likely as we enter that territory. Or if there was a way to do any kind of, I don't know your industry well enough or your suppliers, but if there was a way to do some sort of consignment thing so that you could order very quickly and get supplied quickly. In the case of a disaster, perhaps put it back to them. I know a lot of companies do that sort of thing. Like I said, I'm not sure if that's possible with what you do, but could be something to look into. Rachel also made the comment, the beauty of an iPhone, iPad, iCloud, it's got all your contacts. Very true. That is one solution that lots of people are really loving. Now, I was in Townsville on the week too, and I met an IT guy. What did he tell me? Microsoft has got a cloud solution as well, apparently, so that could be worth a look into for those on those sort of softwares. Christina said, I will look into cloud computing and use of hashtags to inform media after an event. Thank you. You're very welcome. Christina, there are a lot of media that use Twitter, and if you want to use it for disaster management and that response type stuff, great. Also really good to get PR opportunities out of, to be quite honest, on the sideline. So look up your favourite journalists or publications, follow them, and talk directly to them. We've never had the opportunity to do that before. And Christina said, we're very active with Facebook and Twitter. Good on you. They're really good business tools. Rachel has said that's helping a bit. Stock is always a tricky area. Sure is, Rachel. I remember my T-shirt business with stock. I mean, sometimes we'd have all these orders of certain colours and sizes, so we'd order in a lot of that, anticipating it, but next season it was something else. So it's always very hard to predict the trends, and if in your case you're targeting that disaster management, I mean, nobody knows when they're coming. You could look at the Bureau of Meteorology and get some insights, but of course it's still not a sure shot, is it? Look, has anybody else got a question at this point? I've gone through all those text messages. Put your hand up. I can see Daniel has got his hand up, and so has Kim. Daniel, I'm not sure if you do want to chat or you've just got your hand up from something previous, so if you'd like to put it down if you haven't got a question now, and same with you, Kim. Otherwise, I'll unmute you. Daniel, did you want to ask a question? Daniel, have you got a mic at all that can connect? Kim's saying my hand is down. It's actually appearing up at my end, Kim. I'm not sure what's going on there. Daniel, I can't hear you, so if you do have a question, you may like to text it through, and I'd be more than happy to answer it. Kim's put her hand up and down. She's playing around with it, so I don't think she's got a question. Christina, I don't know if I copied that link down correctly. Can I repeat it? I can grab it for you and send it through, absolutely. Everyone, I'm actually going to send you through another link as well, and it is, if we're done here, a survey link. So I would really like you all to please, before you log off today, fill in a quick survey. I'm just going to, sorry, here we go, in here. Oops, bear with me. Okay, we have that is the link to today's survey. We would love your feedback on what you enjoyed about today's session, what perhaps wasn't so good for you. Actually, I've typed that ever so slightly wrong. Let's try that again. Too many S's in there. That is the correct one there. Okay. Now we'll go back a couple of slides so you can see it on the screen there. I think that is the link you were referring to, Christina. Would that be right? The BCP plan that's available on DD's website. So you can see there it's business.qld.gov.au/managing/275.htm. Hopefully that is useful to you. Well, thanks once again for getting on today, guys. I really appreciate it, and I take my hat off to you because this is not a particularly, sexy subject. It's a very, very important one, though, and it could save you thousands of dollars if you get the stuff into place and then disaster does strike. So good on you for being proactive. Please spread the word that this is recorded and is made available on that small business webinar site. And we would love to see you on next week's session, and next year there will be new sessions. They're being planned now, so keep an eye out for them as well. I'm sure by following DD's Facebook or Twitter accounts, you'll be the first to hear about them. Christina's checking if it's a slightly different link. I think that is it, Christina. Except you've got Managing 212. It should be called Business Continuity Plan, and once you're on the site, if that's not working, 275 doesn't work, she's saying. Okay, I would suggest you go and search Business Continuity Plan in their search function. It may be that since we were provided this link, they've moved it within their system. I'd say that's what's going on. So try searching Business Continuity Plan within the DD website. Okay, she's saying she thinks 212 is it. Okay, gotcha. I'm glad you found it. Thanks for persevering and for sharing that. Sometimes these things do change. Okay, I'm going to sign off. Thanks once again. Please complete the survey. There it is again to remind you. And once again, we hope to see you online again real soon. See ya.